Glenmorgan Spring Bay website to the YouTube platform, where the public can view the meeting live and watch recordings of the previous council meetings. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Regulation 33, these video audio files will be retained by council for at least 6 months and made available for viewing live, as well as online within 5 days of the scheduled meeting. The written minutes of the meeting, once confirmed, prevail over the video audio recording of that meeting. So I declare the meeting open and welcome councillors, staff, members of the public, and declare the meeting open at 2:05. We have an apology from Councillor Farmer. Every other councillor is in attendance. So agenda item 1.3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Any councillor have any issues with the agenda as far as pecuniary interests going forward this evening? No? Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, which is agenda item 2.1, ordering meeting of council on the 26th of June. The recommendation, the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 26th of June being confirmed as a true and correct record. Some councillor prepared to move that. Councillor Wood, a seconder. Councillor Steiner, all those in favour? Unanimous?
I wasn't present, Mayor Kent.
So all councillors with the exception of the absentee at the time. Thank you. Agenda item 3, Planning Authority section under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2005. The chairperson hereby declares that the council is now acting as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for section 3 of the agenda. The recommendation that the council now acts as a planning authority. Someone care to do that? Councillor Crawford?
Yeah. Move that the council now acts as a planning authority.
Second. Councillor Woods, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. At 4 minutes past 5. Sure. So agenda item 3.1. 48 Gordon Street, Bicheno, and the recommendation there is on page 21. Someone care to move for discussion on 48 Gordon Street, Bicheno? Councillor Woods.
Move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glenmorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, that the application for a new residence at 48 Gordon Street, Bicheno, DA 2018/96, be approved subject to the following conditions 1 through to 9.
Have a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor. It's open for discussion, councillors. Councillor Crawford.
I'd like to just put an amendment. On recommendation 1, I would actually like to include the word with the endorsed revised plans, just to make it quite clear that that's because we do have both lots of plans.
Yes. Any issue with that? Okay. Do you want to vote on that, or we accept that? Accept it? Thank you. Further discussion, questions, councillors?
This is totally irrelevant, but do you think the fan could be turned down? Because I think it will affect audio, what people can hear through the streaming. Thank you.
Any Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor Kent. I'll be supporting this today, mainly because it complies actually with the planning scheme. What does concern me though and we've talked about it before, that on page 17, when they talk about the how this application actually is when they compare it with the other properties around, so that on the second last paragraph you'll see that they're comparing it with properties that are around that area. But I think that's can be quite difficult sometimes, because those properties might have been there for a very long time. We do actually have a new planning scheme, and it's really hard when it talks about if it's appropriate to the surrounding properties or similar to. So I just wanted to point that out. I do have a concern with that. That's actually in the scheme that I have that problem, rather than actually with the recommendation today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Woods, Councillor Steiner, Councillor Crawford, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Wisby and Councillor Parkin. The motion is approved. Thank you, councillors. Uh, 3.2, Amendment 2327 Swanwick Road, Coles Bay. The recommendation is on page 43. Someone, excuse me, somebody prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor Wisby.
That, as provided for by the provisions of Section 3 of Schedule 6 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, LUPA, A, pursuant to Section 34(1)A Planning Scheme Amendment AM 2018/05, be initiated and certified as being in accordance with Section 30(O) and 32 of LUPA 2.1, rezone part of 23 to 27 Swanwick Road, Coles Bay, CT 163520/302, from low density residential zone to local business zone as shown in attachment A, and 2, to modify clause 20.2 by including storage as a discretionary use class with a qualification only if in Swanwick. B, pursuant to Section 38 of LUPA AM 2018/05, be placed on public exhibition for no less than 28 days. C, pursuant to Section 39 of LUPA, if no representations are received during public exhibition, Council directs the General Manager to advise the Tasmanian Planning Commission in writing that no representations have been received.
We have a seconder for that motion or that recommendation.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, it's open for discussion, councillors. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. I have actually a problem with this. I was pleased to see on page 36 that quite clearly put the approval process, so I'd like to thank the planner for that. The problem I have with this is that if you see on page 35, when it was first recognised that it needed to provide additional opportunity for commercial development to meet daily needs of the local visitors, that was identified 34 years ago. 34 years. And then it was further identified in, I think it's 2014 or something, the structure plan, the Coles Bay and Swanwick structure plan. Now, the reason I say that is that there was lots of opportunities if council had have looked at it much earlier. At the moment, like I've got this map here that councillors can see, this is Swanwick, so this area, is Swanwick, right? So this is actually where we're proposing, right, this amendment goes out where the commercial area will be, all right? And so there maybe now isn't another area, but at that time, none of this was actually developed, and perhaps something in the middle, that was more closer, and when we look at physical activity and what we talk about in those, probably something that would have been more beneficial to the community and better located could have happened. But I don't think that's the opportunity that we have these days still left. The other thing that I want to say is what concerns me, and I perhaps throw this to the planner, is that I see that Coralina's requested this amendment. I'm just wondering if the planner has any more information in what they're actually proposing to do in that, if it goes ahead and that is rezoned, the amendment goes ahead, what proposal they're expecting to do there.
Through the Mayor, my understanding is they have some interest from various business people, but as to what eventuates, we'll all just have to wait and see. But obviously it's being rezoned to a local business zone, so there's a limited range of activities that can be considered there.
Right, thank you. What concerns me, I'll go on from there, is that councillors will be aware there's a massive amount of opportunities for a lot of different areas, and you will have seen them listed in the agenda of what you can do in local business areas, including that which is storage. And at the moment we do have a storage area there which is reasonably small, that's for boats and that, and it's probably quite appropriate. But that really concerns me about what can actually be done there. So that whole area could perhaps be taken up in storage, and then it wouldn't benefit really much of the community at all. So they're kind of things that concern me. I know with the storage it's going to be in the new statewide planning scheme anyway, as in the local business. So regardless if it went in now, it would probably just transfer over anyway when the new statewide planning scheme comes in. I actually support this today, but I'm not actually happy about supporting it at all. I think we need, as a council, to actually start planning our communities better for our communities earlier on, rather than reacting to what developers or whoever wants to actually impose on those positions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, councillors? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Woods, Councillor Steiner, Councillor Crawford, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Parker and Councillor Wisby, unanimously approved. Thank you very much, councillors. Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meetings Procedure, Regulation 2005, the chairperson hereby declares that the council is now no longer acting as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for Section 3 of this agenda. The recommendation that council no longer acts as a planning authority. And time is 5:15. Councillor Crawford, moved. Seconder, Councillor Steiner. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Public question time. Agenda item 4. Got some questions. Mr. McClune, is it, Peter?
Peter McClone.
Thanks, Peter.
The Council Code of Conduct requires, in part, that a councillor must bring an open and unprejudiced mind to all matters being decided upon in the course of his or her duties. In April, Mayor Kent told the ABC the Canberra proposal was, quote, a fantastic opportunity for the region. Quote continues, it's an unbelievable opportunity from my point of view. We are screaming out on the East Coast for accommodation. On the 3rd of July, the Mercury referred to Councillor Kent as being in favour of the project. Mayor, given your comments in the media and the Code of Conduct requirements, should you absent yourself when the Council votes on its draft report on the Canberra Special Area Plan before it is sent to the Tasmanian Planning Commission? If not, how can the community believe that you'll go into that meeting with an open and unprejudiced mind?
Well, it was my personal opinion as a councillor and mayor. Other councillors have different views. That's it.
Will you answer the first question? Will you
Which
absent
was?
yourself?
Which was?
Will you absent yourself from the council discussion?
No. Can't. That's what I'm here for, to vote. Why would I be here? If it was the shoe was on the other foot and people were asking me that it was a good development and they wanted me to vote for it, that's what I'm here for. So there's 8 councillors. I'm one of 8 to vote.
And you as a councillor, are you bringing an open mind to that discussion? and vote?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Colin Stevenson.
Colin Stevenson, I'm a resident of Cambria Drive. My questions are to the Mayor and concern the Cambria specific area plan. Given that the current Glamorgan Spring Bay interim planning scheme, rural resource zone, under discretionary use class of residential, allows only a single dwelling, and whilst I appreciate that you won't be in a position to provide a finite figure, could you please inform us of your understanding of the numbers of accommodation buildings potentially allowable under the SAP?
Thank you. I'll refer that to the General Manager. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I don't have that detail. Mr Wells might.
Just
Sure.
like to point out, the planning scheme has houses are defined as residential.
Correct.
Visitor accommodation is a different use altogether.
Correct.
The Cambria proposal is not a residential subdivision. So, but there will be, as there is now, the ability to apply for visitor accommodation in that zone.
And no residential.
It's not a residential it's not a residential proposal. What they've proposed is to look at visitor accommodation, be it motels.
Sorry, I'm just unsure. Are we talking about their master plan or the SAP when you refer to proposal?
The specific area plan does not provide for a residential subdivision.
No. My next question relates to it. And could you please inform us of the mechanisms included in this SAP that provide the constraints to the permissible number of units that could be built on the property? Any?
Through the Mayor, the specific area plan does not provide an upper limit. The current, but I point out, nor does the current planning scheme, and nor does the statewide planning scheme either. It's performance based.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Churchill. Jenny, could I just ask you to use the mic because I'm having some difficulty.
Just don't break into song, Jenny, please.
Thank you. I don't think that's on. Yeah, my question is to Mayor Kent as well. Mayor, would you be able to tell us the exact number of representations received by Glamorgan Spring Bay Planning Department regarding the Cambria Green specific area plan amendment?
Not at this particular time.
No?
No.
Not yet? Not after the period of time that the representations have been received?
Yep.
Okay. So I think the East Coast Alliance has a fairly good, accurate idea of those figures. So I would then extrapolate from that and ask would you please explain why we feel you misrepresented a number of times publicly those figures in the Examiner on the 16th and 18th of June and again on the 3rd of July in the Mercury.
So let me say firstly, you're here to ask questions. You're allowed 2 questions. We're not
Second question.
We're not here to debate the issue. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. The second thing I'd like to say is that when the council officers have been through those particular representations, we'll have a clear picture on who said what, and I've made this statement in the media numerous times and probably again today. There are a lot of people that have sent in emails there are a lot of people that have written in and they're the same people. So they have to be extrapolated out.
All right. Well, given that,
Not a debate. Any
it's
further
not
questions?
a debate, but I don't think you answered either of my questions. So,
Okay,
so I'd just like to make that point
thank you.
and to let you know that we do have over 420 known submissions individually, and that is about double what you're quoting. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Churchill.
Thank you. Just following on from that question, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to ask through you of the General Manager, we understand that Council is currently seeking a full-time planner, as the previous planner, Mr Shane Wells, is now the Development and Compliance Manager. Given the number of submissions that we know, how can the community be confident that Council is able to manage the preparation and writing of the Section 39 report and properly consider the issues raised in these submissions?
Mr Churchill, you can be rest assured that we will take our professionalism and we will do it professionally. Depending on how long it takes, it'll be done properly.
Thank you.
Anne Heald.
Just for the record, it's pronounced held. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
So my question is for Mr Mayor. I'm a 55-year young local business owner and part-time worker in Swansea. Following your comment in the Weekend Australian on July the 7th, stating that some opposition to the Cambria Green are NIMBYs or have NIMBY attitudes, while some knockers are retirees with nothing better to do, I'd like to ask where you get the statistics for that demograph.
What were the statistics again that you said?
Some opposition have NIMBY attitudes, and while some knockers are retirees with nothing better to do.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly my thoughts. You asked me, I'm giving you an honest
And my
answer.
question was, where do you get the statistics to make that statement
From a
for that
few-
demographic?
From a few of those people that live in Swansea, that I know personally. And I'm not getting into a debate. I've answered your question. You have another question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So this is for all council. Can I just ask when all of you knew first of Canberra Green Development, and if any of you cited the master plan before April the 19th?
I saw it in the agenda, which came out on the Thursday before the council meeting.
Thank you.
Same. Yeah, same.
Same.
Shane, obviously you'd be different. You will have been seeing it for a long time. Mr Metcalfe?
Yes, we've certainly seen it for a long time. Not in its final production. You know, we deal with developers all the time that may take 3, 5, 7 years, 10 years. Plans change all the time. We tried to guide them through the process. For instance, Solace has been going for 11 years that I've been here. So that's what happens. We work with the developers.
Okay. Mr Mayor?
Couple of years.
So you cited the master plan a couple of years before April the 19th. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. My understanding of the business, the property was sold maybe 2 years ago. Development applications, when they come, they come. So the people that bought the property 18 months to 2 years ago.
So just to clarify, my question was if anybody cited the master plan before April the 19th.
I certainly didn't. I was aware that the property had been sold.
Okay, thank you.
Keith Pike.
Thanks, Angela. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Excuse me, you'll have to excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. I'm going to come south this time. My questions are to you, General Manager. Thank you very much. Look, I've read the reports, the financial reports for this month, and I've got a question. In May, under the medical services report, under the actuals and the employment benefits, that's the costs, the outgoing costs, we had a figure of $425,437 expenditure. But this month in June, for the June's figure, that's jumped up to $511,735, a huge difference of $86,298. So under employment benefits, could you enlighten us on what that means, what that was spent on, please?
Absolutely, Mr Pike. It's 3 fortnights in June.
And it went up $86,000. Right, thank you. So
you forget, Mr Pike, we have a doctor on our books as an employee.
I understand that. I'm just asking for $86,000 in a month. That's the only month that showed up. No other months of the year. I've checked them all. So I'll go on to my next question. From that expenditure in May, it rolled over into June, and the notation and the May actuals was $895 actually in credit or in the red. But we now have a deficit in June of $75,710. And on your notation notes, you've got number 3, extra costings in splitting the practices July 2017.
Correct.
Now, could you itemise all of that, please? So tell us how much went towards the splitting of the services.
Absolutely, but not tonight.
Right, I'll put you on notice then that you will supply that as a notation to the agenda for the next meeting. Yes. Thank you very much indeed, sir.
Thank you, Mr Pike. Hugh Clement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is probably for either the General Manager or the planning section. Given that the planning controls are at their most basic level designed to minimise conflict between differing land uses, can Council please indicate if any thought or investigation has been put into the planning merit of allowing a substantial intensification of the seldom currently used landing ground adjacent to the residential use of Cambria Drive into a commercial airfield has been put in place. In particular, given that the proponent's planning report is silent on the matter of any potential conflict of loss of amenity due to air traffic noise, but on their page 47 under section 3.9.5 heading, they actually go to say that the condition and suitability of the airstrip is not known. So whilst in one hand they're asking for an intensification, the next they're saying they don't know what level it's at, and there doesn't appear to be any further information asked from Council regarding whether this is something that should be considered as appropriate, especially seeing as it's significant in an agricultural zone and the conflict between air traffic and residential uses are well documented throughout Australia and Tasmania.
Mr Wells?
Two things. Firstly, that issue has been raised in a number of representations, so that will be considered in the 39 report. Secondly, there is actually no application before us with any firm details of what may happen with that airstrip. Their documentation has flagged that may be something that happens in the future. An application would flesh out exactly the details of that, be it the type of craft, the hours that they use, the purpose of the flights. And that level of detail is necessary to answer those sorts of questions. And I believe what the thinking with the 39 report is to look at the existing planning scheme provisions. Do they provide an adequate basis to flesh out those issues if an application comes in?
Not quite what I meant. What I meant more was how have Council even looked at allowing a zoning that would allow for an airstrip right next to a residential area. That's been flagged. That's in the area, I think it's area 3 off the top of my head regarding that, and Council have essentially initiated and said that yes, subject to performance criteria, but you're allowing now a zoning that would allow an airfield. So, and a substantial one, you know, is performance
Through
based.
the Mayor, an application could be made today for that under our current planning scheme.
Thank you. Public question times are finished. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. 4.1, Works Manager, any further there, or General Manager?
No, Mr Mayor.
All done?
Been resolved.
Thank you. Mrs Anderson. Mrs Julie Norton, my understanding that all is now resolved and taken care of. Anybody want to question that at all? No, thank you. So we get to agenda item 5, information reports. General Manager. So they're there, councillors, for everybody to pursue, and I would understand you've done that, so please come forward with your questions to the General Manager. Thank you. Councillor Woods.
Mr Mayor, my question is through you to the Works Manager on page 72. Town maintenance, ongoing general maintenance is being carried out in our town areas to ensure an acceptable level of overall presentation is maintained. Being that I live in Tribunna and I notice things when I go for my daily walk, Tribunna hasn't been mowed for quite some time. I know it might seem little to most people, but it is actually, you know, to maintain an acceptable level of presentation. This is not happening. Where are the contacts?
Works Manager, comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. We've actually had the contractors not working for 3 months now, and they're just basically waiting on a week's notice to start again to do their rounds for Tribunna, Orford, Spring Beach, Buckland. But as yet I haven't engaged them to recommence, purely because some of the areas are patchy and a lot of that, 80% of the areas don't need mowing, so I'm sort of leaving it to the last minute. I don't want the place to look too untidy, but also don't want them mowing nothing basically in some of the other towns. So although Tribunna in the program is first off the rank, I'll wait until I think it's sort of necessary to then start it, because a lot of the other towns don't need it at the moment. So I'm hoping probably mid-August-ish, mid to late August, purely because the cold weather and the lack of growth.
Thank you, Tony. But further to that, there are some areas around Tribunna that are quite overgrown and quite difficult probably to push prams or ride bikes through. When they come to do the maintenance, with regards to that, are they going to be cleaning up the long grass mess that's going to be left behind?
Yes.
They will. Thank you. Further to that, on 72 and on to page 73, I think it's what Kelvin Jones has done for with the ESM unit manager, Glamorgan Spring Bay SES, is to be commended by council. And I know that we do commend them, but it's just he's written a very good report. And I was talking to him the other day, and the work that he does up there and also with PCYC is to be commended.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions of the General Manager's report? Councillor Wisby.
Thanks, Mayor Kent. I too was quite confused with the medical services report, that the extra cost in splitting practices back in July 17, it's the first time that's actually been put in here as a description, as a note for the reason, and that was like near 12 months ago. And I don't actually understand why that note has been used, extra cost with splitting practices, July 17. I just assumed that meant Tribunna practice, when there was actually significant cost from the other financials that we get, the more extensive financials, that basically showed 60% of that figure belonged to Bishana, with only 40% belonging to Tribunna. So I don't actually understand the notes on this one.
General Manager, comment?
Mr Mayor, as I said, I'll take that on notice from Mr Pite, so I'll give the answer of the detail in the next agenda.
Thank you.
I don't have the individual medical practices in front of me.
Thank you.
And Mayor Kent, on page 68, maybe I've always found it difficult to understand some of the notes. But on page 68, for example, it says FAG grant in advance and roads to recovery not received. But what does that actually mean to the financials? So this is the 30th of June financials. And when I've read through these, there's a lot of, and I understand there's a lot of adjustments and journals that need to be done. But as council laws, our responsibility is actually to understand the financials and the financial position of the council. But if I can't actually work this out, I just don't know how I'm actually doing my job. You know what I mean? So I don't understand some of the, FAG grant in advance and roads to recovery not received. So what? So what does that, you know what I mean? So what does that mean? And there's like page 75, well below budget at this stage, now in contractors. But there's no heading there that actually says contractors. So, and I'm on the audit panel, and I run my own business, and I still don't understand these financials.
General Manager, comment.
Mr Mayor, Materials and Services has about 30 or 35 accounts in it, which include contractors, and if you remember, the town maintenance was taken away from wages and put in contractors. Therefore, that's the adjustment there. The FAG grants that Councillor Wisby's alluding to is that the Commonwealth Government paid this year's FAG grant in advance, but by the time we didn't get our roads to recovery funding for the last year, it almost balanced out to the budget. The federal government made an announcement late May that they were going to pay the FAG grant in advance for the 18-19 period. If they hadn't have done that, our grants would have been below budget. Instead, they're above budget.
So was the FAG grant within our budget? Was we expecting it within our estimated?
We had a half in our budget, which because they'd paid a half the year before in advance. So we only had a half in the budget, and then we got a full in the budget.
Okay.
But then we didn't get roads to recovery, so.
Yep, I get you. Yep, okay. There's just nothing more I can say on that. I just don't understand it. Thank you.
But I mean, where do I head with it? Do I put huge descriptions in it, or I mean, the detailed reports went out last week. I mean, they could have asked questions then, and I would have been able to answer them, but I don't know how much detail I have to put in there.
Mayor Ken, that's fine from an internal perspective, or from, email to email, but this is a public document, and when you have people asking you questions about this, and I go, I've got no idea, but I should have an idea, and I understand what the General Manager's saying, how much information do you put in, but it is difficult.
Yes, well, obviously, I mean, where humanly possible, I'd be asking as many questions prior to the meeting from the relevant people that do the administrative accounts and the administrative work. Now, that's open to councillors to do that, and so I would suggest, if humanly possible, that you try that avenue and see where we go with that.
Yeah, but my point is this is a public document that the community should somewhat understand also. That's my point. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I think the council needs to look at the overall result and see that it's well, the variances are well below 10% in overall, and last year they were below 5%. And I expect that overall they'll be below 5% this year in a budget variance overall. Things move around all the time.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment, councillors, for the General Manager's report? No further questions? The recommendation that the management reports be received and noted. Thank you. Agenda item 6, minutes of section 24 committees. So they're in front of you. So 6.1, Glenmorgan Youth Council. The documents are there. The minutes. Agenda item 7, office reports requiring a decision, Beechnut Lions Club. The recommendation is the council approve $1,000 to the Beechnut Lions Club towards the cost of staging a Christmas parade, Christmas carols and street decorations. Someone care to move?
That council approves a grant of $1,000 to the Beechnut Lions Club Incorporated towards the cost of staging a Christmas parade, Christmas carols and street decorations.
Councillor Woods. All those in favour? Councillor Woods, Steiner, Crawford, Deputy Mayor, myself, Parker and Wisby. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 7.2 Spring Bay Suicide Prevention Network. The recommendation is there at the bottom of page 99. Someone care to move?
The council approves a grant of $2,000 to the Spring Bay Suicide Prevention Network towards the purchase of 12 Live Life medical alarms.
Has that been changed from 1,000 to 2,000?
No, Mayor Kent, I'm proposing 2,000 because of the. Do you want me to describe why?
Yeah,
at this point? Because this is a community group that do excellent work. They raise money by selling sausages, and this is an awful lot of money from sausage sales. You know, for that community group to put out of their bank account. So as a council with $7,000 left in a budget that finishes at this meeting, I don't think it's excessive. I don't think it is excessive for us, for such a good cause, to provide $2,000 and therefore reduce what they need to put forward out of their own funds.
Okay, so all councillors happy with that? Councillor Crawford? Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor Kent. It's just on page 103, just on the bottom of the blue, ready to use. And I'm sure the people that have been involved have researched this really well, but just where it says it's very low cost to use on the mobile network. So that is something to, an ongoing cost to, obviously, the people that have are lucky enough to obtain one. But I totally support the proposal and, yeah, commend the people for the work that they've done so far on this. Thank you.
Any further discussion, councillor? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Councillor Woods, Councillor Steiner, Councillor Crawford, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Parker and Councillor Wisby. Unanimously approved. Thank you, councillors. STCA minutes are there in draft form. Comments?
I'd just like to say, Mayor Kent, that yeah, I'm very pleased to see the minutes back on the agenda. It's, thank you.
Thank you. Under item 10, motion tracking document. Sorry. Oh, I've missed one. Sorry. 9. 11 to 9. It's going to happen. It's not going to.
I'll give you 11 minutes. Next one.
Yes. agenda item 9, miscellaneous correspondence. There's a letter in there from Mrs. Brett Tarossi with reference to the Heritage Council. You've all got a copy, you've all read that. So if there's any comment from councillors? No. 9.2, letter there from the Anglican Diocese of Tasmania with reference to...
I'd like to speak to agenda item 9.2, the Anglican Diocese of Tasmania, the possible sale of church buildings and other church properties, and move a motion that councillors note the information contained in the letter from the Anglican Diocese of Tasmania and offer support to parishioners or the parish council who may request assistance in the development of reasoned proposals in relation to the sale of churches and or church properties in our area.
I second that. Any further discussion, councillors? No further discussion. Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 10, motion tracking document. Councillors. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the General Manager, has the, on page 115, the sale of council properties, has the old chambers here in Tribunna been sold, or are there any other interested party, or are there any interested parties?
Through you, Mayor, there is a contract on it, so yes, it has been sold.
And another one on the on page 116. Glamorgan Spring Bay Council's Community Strategic Plan. When can we expect to have this brought to Council to workshop?
Mr. Mayor, I thought we'd communicated with councillors that we're going to put it off until the new council under the directions of Mr. Alex Tay.
My apologies, I do recall that.
Oh, we're going to do a workshop on it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Steiner.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. On page 116, the curbside vendors policy has a community consultation to commence. I'm wondering when that is going to commence and what that might look like across the municipality.
Comment?
Mr. Wells is organising that, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Wells.
Sorry, I was in a different place.
Offer any, were you? Would you mind repeating the question, Councillor Steiner?
I'm referring to the community consultation process for the curbside vendors policy.
Yes.
When that might commence and when it will, what it would look like across the municipality.
That has commenced. We've sent out letters to all the food premises and food van businesses and to other interested groups, and had some comments back to date. I think there's another week or two to go. And at some point that will be brought to the council.
So that's the community consultation, the sending out of the letters. Thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Wisby?
Confirm that that information will be brought back to a council workshop, not to a council meeting. That's not the first time we're going to see it, is it? It'll come to a workshop for discussion.
If, through the Mayor, if the council wants a workshop, council will have a workshop.
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine. Thank you. Come back to a workshop. Thank you. Any further questions, councillors, on the motion tracking? Agenda item 11, questions on notice, without notice, I should say. No questions without Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. As the Mayor, have you or the General Manager responded to the inaccuracies and slights against Council, e.g. calling a hayseed outfit, contained in the Charles Woolley article published in the Tas Weekend dated July the 14th or 15th, 2018?
I certainly have not. General Manager?
No, I haven't, Mr Mayor.
Could we perhaps discuss that at the next council workshop, please?
Certainly.
Following on from the question I asked at the June council meeting regarding when council will be briefed about the legal findings regarding the notice of the suspected contravention of the planning scheme at 11610 Tasman Highway, Little Swamport, and 18589 Tasman Highway, Bishno, I would like to ask the Mayor, who in his email to Mr Waiminga dated on the 22nd of March, saying, as Mayor, I am coordinating the suspected contravention. I'd actually like to ask again this month when Council might be briefed about the legal findings.
Would have every expectation at the next workshop, if that's where you want it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
My final question is to both the Mayor, to you and the General Manager. The question is, for what reason have you chosen not to respond to me? Were my questions taken on notice over the last 2+ years at council meetings?
Example?
I've actually given the notices. They've been taken down. I've done my responsibility. I asked those questions that were genuine. They have been written down by the General Manager when they were taken on notice.
Right.
So.
Oh, I see. On those, General Manager, have you?
Mr Mayor, as far as I'm concerned, I've answered them. I'm happy to go back. How long was it? 2 years?
Years. There's not one that has been answered. So.
Okay, we'll take it on notice, and the General Manager will go back and have a look at them.
Well, the question actually was for what reason they responded to.
He said he has responded, so. You say he hasn't.
Suggesting I'm lying?
No, I'm not suggesting anything. We're taking it on notice is the only thing that I can do.
Thank
or
you.
have you got another view of what I can do about it?
No.
Thank you. Any further questions without notice? Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have 4 questions that need to be answered. The first 3 are on signage. For a long time now, we've seen the Solace where it was a sign saying something remarkable was going to happen here. Well, that never ever happened, and finally that sign was taken down. They're installing new signs up at the moment as I was coming home tonight. What are the new signs saying? Anyone have any idea?
I don't, Mr Mayor. Do you, Mr Wells? No.
No.
So, with councillors getting involved with the Solace, I'm surprised that we don't know what signs are going up there.
Well, we'll endeavour to find out, but Shane,
obviously don't know the details, but replacing existing signage usually doesn't require a planning approval as such. So if they're changing the branding, maybe what they're doing, it wouldn't need to be brought to council as a new planning application.
With council having 1 foot in the soil there, I was surprised that we aren't aware of what's going on there. The second one is road recovery signs at Barton Avenue. That road was finished 6 months ago. Why are we plastered every time we drive past there with the signs saying road recovery signs?
Mr Mayor, because that's the law.
Is it?
Yep.
So how long do they have to stay there for?
Indefinitely.
12 months.
Is it 12 months, is it? I thought it was indefinitely.
Okay, and my other one on the signs, the overkill of the Morale Island signs. I say it's overkill because I feel it is an overkill. Everywhere you look, you've got Morale Island ferry signs. Who's paid for those?
Mr Mayor, State Growth.
Okay, that's fine. I was a bit worried the council might have been involved. And my other one is not on signage, it's on welcome to Great Eastern Drive. Just don't look at all the toilets that are sitting on the highway at Tasman Highway Orford. Now, all you councillors know who I'm talking about. We've got toilets there that on private land that are not connected to the sewerage at all. How is this being allowed to go ahead?
Do you want to answer it, General Manager, or pass it on to Shane?
Mr Mayor, that's a proper portaloo and it is permitted. What you're talking about?
Yeah, I can't mention names, yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, no.
No, I know that I can't, yeah, okay. So it's all legal? Okay. I have no more questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor, any further questions without notice? Councillor Woods?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Considering that we had a workshop today, and I've forgotten the name of what it was, about renewable energy, is that what it was? I haven't got the paper in front of me, I'm sorry. With regards to the solar panels that we have on the council chambers here, what savings are we making? Have we covered costs or heading into that savings area?
When we did the initial, through you, Mayor, the initial business plan, we expected to break even in 6 years, and I assume that that's what will happen with the amount of them on the roof, because we use the solar power during the day and don't need it at night. So,
through you, Mr Mayor, sorry, what year are we into with them?
3 or 4, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. And just as a side note to what took place today as far as workshops go, I'd like to request a workshop on the 14th of August to deal with the budget review for priority of new capital works, delegation register and planning and building fees policy. And if we could have the relevant documentation for the new capital works for 2018-19, approximately 7 days before the workshop.
Mr Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but what's changed to what was presented to Council 4 or 5 times prior to the end of June?
This is the request from all councillors, I should say, just to go over just to review, I should say, the new capital works.
Okay, they haven't changed
since
those 5 workshops?
Yeah. That's just a request from us, from council.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, if I may, Mr Mayor. And also another workshop on the 28th of August to cover the Environmental Health and Caravans bylaw, the audit panel and the Freycinet Peninsula Draft Management Plan. To be on the
workshop.
Yeah, okay. On the workshop.
That's fine. That's fine. Any further questions, councillors? No further questions. I declare the meeting closed. The live streaming and recording of meetings will now be switched off, and I'll check that the streaming has been terminated.